Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praise due to Allah, and His praise and blessings and peace be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the rest of the prophets and the messengers and their followers until the day of judgment. My dear viewers, I welcome you in a new episode from your program, The Robe Which Binds Us. In the last episode, we discussed the meaning of al-jama'ah, the meaning of al-jama'ah. And I mentioned that al-jama'ah comes from the word jama'ah, which means when you gather, when you bring things or parts together. And this gathering things together, it could be something tangible or intangible. When people gather in the masjid to pray, to perform the prayer, we call this jama'ah prayer because they physically came all together and they were in one place and they prayed. And also we call ijma' when there is a consensus in any matter, or when you collect your thoughts together, we said we consider this a form of jam', a form of jam'. And also I mentioned in the previous episode the technical definition of jama'ah. And this word, even though not been mentioned in the Quran, but it was mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, as we will see in this episode inshallah. But also it's been used a lot by the Muslim scholars. So in order for us to understand the definition of jama'ah, technically speaking, we need to go over all these different definitions. And we were able to collect 10 different definitions. We remember there were 5 of them, all of them related to each other, all related to the intangible jama'ah. Which is related to basically following the Quran and Sunnah and following the orders of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the other hand, we find another 4 different definitions. Also, they are all related to each other, which is basically when the Muslims come together under the leadership of their leader, or they give their allegiance to their leader, which is the tangible type of jama'ah. And in the end we talked about any kind of gathering, it's called jama'ah, which is a linguistic definition. So basically we have here 2 types of jama'ah. The jama'ah al-ilmiyya, or the intangible jama'ah, and al-jama'ah al-amaliyya, which is tangible or practical jama'ah. Practical jama'ah. Is there any difference between them? Yes. Let's see. The jama'ah, the intangible jama'ah, it's the safe and victorious sect which will remain until the day of judgment. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this ummah will be divided, this ummah, this nation, his nation, will be divided into 73 sects. And he said, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, all of them in the hellfire, and that not necessarily that they are not Muslims, but they have done something cause or lead to the hellfire, which is the innovation that they came with and dividing the Muslims ummah, the Muslims nation. That's why they deserve to be punished by the hellfire, but it not necessarily means that they are not Muslims. Like we say, when you fornicate, you will be punished, and if you in the day of judgment by the hellfire, or you steal, you kill, and all these sins, as we all know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised those who will commit sins in dunya, that they might face their punishment in the hellfire. The same way we understand these texts, also we understand this hadith, that those who divided this ummah into these groups, they might be punished for their actions. Anyway, the Prophet ﷺ said, one of them will be saved. And he said, ﷺ, they are al-jama'ah. They are al-jama'ah. The one will be saved from the hellfire, al-jama'ah. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned the word al-jama'ah, as this hadith reported by Imam Tirmidhi and others. Al-jama'ah, he was asked, what do you mean by al-jama'ah? The Prophet ﷺ said, what I practice today and what my companions practicing. So it's my way and my companion's way, because the Prophet ﷺ companion's way, it's not different from his way. It's just a practical way of implementing the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So al-jama'ah, the intangible jama'ah, is the victorious sect. It will be until the day of judgment. But here the tangible jama'ah, the jama'ah which is the Muslims who gathered around their leader. It may not exist at some times and in some places. So for example, if Muslims, they don't have a political system in one country, or maybe they don't have a leader or a caliph or a khalifa. So this type of jama'ah will not be exist sometimes in some countries, in some societies, in some times. But the other type of jama'ah, which is the intangible, which is following Al-Quran and Sunnah, following the truth, will always remain, will be always there, it will be always exist. It is obligatory upon every Muslim to be part of this jama'ah in any place and time. There is no excuse for somebody not to join this jama'ah, which is the way of Allah, the way of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. But the other type of jama'ah, joining the tangible jama'ah, is only obligatory upon those Muslims who lives in that country where that jama'ah established. So let's say if Muslims in a country give their allegiance to their leader, have elected their leader, it's not obligatory upon every Muslim who lives maybe in other countries to join this jama'ah or to join this country, and it's obligatory upon them to give their allegiance or their bay'ah to that imam or to that leader of a country. This is a very important point, because I have seen some people claim that it is obligatory upon every Muslim, regardless where he lives, to obey and to give their allegiance or certain individuals or certain leaders of countries, and unfortunately sometimes even not leaders of countries. And those people do not live in that country. They're not part of that society, but they are part of other society, and they should, nobody should force them to obey or to join that or to be under the rule of that leader, since his leadership is related to those to his country only. And you will talk about this inshallah more in details with the evidence, but here what we're trying to explain the difference between the two types of jama'ah. Let's move to a new point. This jama'ah is not defined by quantity. It's not defined by quantity. So you can be the jama'ah, the intangible jama'ah, even if you're by yourself. As Imam Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu ardah, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ibn Mas'ud said, the jama'ah is the truth, or what goes along with the truth, even if you are by yourself. Al-jama'atu muwafaqa al-haqqa walau kunta wahdak. Walau kunta wahdak. That's why they said about Abu Hamza Sukkari, for instance, one of the great Muslim scholars, that he is al-jama'ah in his country, because he was the only one in that town or in that village ordering people to follow Al-Quran and Sunnah, and he was not involved with the innovations which was so common in his town or in his community. So he became al-jama'ah in that case. Al-Imam Malik, Al-Imam, for example, Ahmad, rahimahullah, when he refuted the opinion of Al-Mu'tazila, which is related to Al-Quran, that Al-Quran is one of Allah's creation, he was Al-Jama'ah, even though the leader and the chief judge in that time was against this idea. But Imam Ahmad was the Jama'ah, and he referring to the intangible Jama'ah, which is what goes with the truth. But on the other hand, the tangible Jama'ah depend on quantity, since it is a result of power and control and strength. So if there is an individual, 10 people come, or 20 or 100 or a couple of thousand elected him to be the Khalifa or the Imam of the Muslims, he doesn't deserve that position, because not the majority of the Muslims have elected him or choose him or followed and obeyed him. This type of Jama'ah, this type of Jama'ah, the practical or the tangible Jama'ah, depends on quantity, And inshallah also we'll talk about this in the future. The one who leaves the intangible Jama'ah, it's either a mubtadi', innovator, or upstate, which is murtad, the person who leaves his religion. But on the other hand, the one who leaves the tangible Jama'ah is called a baghi, transgressor, or muharib, rebel. The person who rebel against the country or the leader. There is a difference between the innovator and the transgressor. The person who leaves the sunnah and leaves the sharia, and the one who go against the rulers or fight the rulers, the elected ruler. There's certain rules related to those type of people, and another set of rules related to the other type of people. That's why the one who leaves the Jama'ah, the intangible Jama'ah al-ilmiyah, take the rulings of the innovator or the murtaddeen. And the one who leaves the Jama'ah al-amaliyah, or the tangible Jama'ah, take the rulings of the transgressor and the rebels. For example, that the leader has the right to fight those rebels if they go against his government, and to stop them from disturbing the society, and force them to go through the civil way of changing if there is need of change. And all these issues, inshallah, we'll talk about it in future. Here we come to the conclusion that the meaning or the Jama'ah, it could relate to the tangible or the intangible Jama'ah, We must realize the difference between both of them, because sometimes people would mix between the tangible Jama'ah and the intangible Jama'ah. That's why I believe there is, I think we have here misconceptions related to the Jama'ah. Yes. I think here we have misconceptions regarding the concept of Jama'ah. First, Jama'ah refers to the Islamic. Some people think that Jama'ah refer to the Jama'at, the Muslim groups these days. Like we see Jama'at so and so, and Jama'at such and such in this country, in that country. Al-Jama'ah, which is used in the Quran or Sunnah, does not refer to these modern sects or modern group. Also, some people always think the Jama'ah defined by quantity. If you have large number of people, it means you are Al-Jama'ah. Also, both types of Jama'ah cannot be absent. Tangible and intangible Jama'ah are one or the same. Some people, they cannot tell the difference between the tangible and the intangible Jama'ah. The tangible Jama'ah must always exist. Some people think that Muslims always has to have the tangible jama'ah. There is always leader, and if there is not, it's impossible. The tangible jama'ah can exist when it meets the conditions which is related to this jama'ah, to this jama'ah. In the end, intangible jama'ah, some people think, necessitates the absence of ikhtilaf, the difference of opinions. No, intangible jama'ah is not only related to the issues which is everybody agree upon, because there is always area for difference of opinions, and inshallah we'll talk more about these issues, and these misconceptions will be cleared when we study in detail the meaning of the way, or when we study the way of the people of Sunnah and Jama'ah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among them. I will leave you here, and I'll see you inshallah in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.